Orc the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 132, Peep the Kenku Guard. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Hillary Shurtleff's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. I've got an awesome guest this week, but before I get to my guest, you know I gotta do it. I gotta leave you in suspense with the ad read. This episode is brought to you by Plus One EXP and their brand new RPG Zine Club. Zine Club is a monthly membership subscription service featuring fresh zines from emerging and expanding creators across the globe. It's our way of inviting GMs, players, and zine lovers everywhere to invest more intentionally in the creative community. It's crowdsourced support without crowdfunding. So this service offers monthly releases that they put out in two 20 to 44 page saddle stitch zines. 3 different flavors. Take your pick from story zines, adventure zines, and all of the zines. You can pick your format of print and digital, or just get digital only for your favorite titles. Join the Clubhouse Discord section of the Plus One EXP community on Discord. Get the best prices guaranteed from your subscription that you're going to get each month. You get a private subscription portal where you can manage your subscription, add products, or change your information, change your frequency monthly, every other month, something else. You pick how often you want these new titles to arrive. You only get what you want. And if you miss a month, why, you can always go back and add a title to your recent month's order. Get an annual surprise each February after your first anniversary. Get access to special content with interviews, how to play videos, special content for Zine Club titles. Get a free pizza if you fill out one of the RPG Zine Club passports, or redeem it for a free pizza at events where Tony is present himself. You're going to get access to new and known designers, the best voices from across the RPG design community. And know that Plus One EXP and RPG Zine Club curate their zines based on community interest and feedback to help you discover your new favorite creators. There's a DIE focus because Plus One is committed to championing diversity, inclusion, and equity in their projects. Creators with diverse experiences make our community better. So Zine Club prioritizes creating equity for all of our creators. And it's more than a purchase. Your subscriptions will let us invest more heavily in our print partners and provide them with potentially life-changing support by consolidating scores or hundreds of purchases as the club grows. So, if you want to learn more, I would recommend that you go to the website rpgzine.club, again, rpgzine.club, and if you want, go to plus1exp.com, and when you're buying stuff on that site, beard balms or lip balms or beard RPGs or whatnot, and you need a discount code at checkout, be sure to use the code Randolph, RANDOLPH, at checkout and get some savings on your purchase at no extra cost to you. Again, website is plus1exp.com, and the Zine Club website is rpgzine.club. All right, and without further ado, I'm joined by another fantastic blast from the past. So without further ado, hello, mystery contestant. Would you care to introduce yourself? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?
Hello, my name is Hillary, aka you can call me Hills. That's what all of my friends call me. And I am a performer in Orlando, Florida. I essentially specialize in character improvisation as well as atmospheric roles. And I have been working in immersive theater for almost 10 years.
Wow, yeah, and you and I have shared the stage together because you and I went to
Hmm.
college together, and we old alma mater in West Texas. And let's see, I'm just trying to remember the exact specifications of the role because we were in Carousel
Hmm.
together, and you played the lead love interest, and I just happened to play like an ancillary character. And then we did the best little whorehouse in Texas together, didn't
Oh,
we?
that's right. We did do that together too.
'Cause those are the only 2 musicals that I did in college.
Ah,
So,
killed it. And I
yeah,
was in both of them.
there we go. Well, because you were
Yeah.
a theater major, were you not?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so I don't know, because we've had our previous guests of this show and also our
Mhm.
mutual friends. Leah Murray's been on twice now, and we've had LaRoyal
Yeah.
on once, but we're hoping to, wend our way back through the rotation of guests and have him back on. I think he's currently going back and forth between Atlanta right now, filming some sort of secret project that we'll learn about on some Netflix trailer launch, and he'll share it on social media, be like, "Hey, I was Kevin's stunt guy again in this
Yeah.
project or whatever it was."
Definitely. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, so what was that journey like from, our college years? Now you're out in Orlando, you're making your own way in the world, and you're in entertainment town of well, I don't know if there's
Yeah.
some snazzy nickname for Orlando that's like the entertainment town of the southeast part of the United States.
I think a lot of people call it the tourist capital of the world, but I don't know if that's legit anymore because Abu Dhabi is apparently like getting up there, and I'm like, I don't know if
Oh.
you can keep that title anymore. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I was teaching essentially back in San Angelo. I was teaching kids from ages 6 to 18 at this children's theater, essentially. So I was constantly telling them, you can go out and live your dreams, do whatever you want. And I was like, that's kind of hypocritical because I've never done that personally. So I thought it would be a really good idea for me to kind of try and dip my toes, if you will, into performing professionally. And it's been a great ride. I've found so many different opportunities out here with so many different companies, and I have learned just even more than I did in college and high school even. So it's been a really really great almost 10 years, which is crazy, and I did not think that that's how long it had been until recently. So
Mhm.
it's wild that it's almost been 10 years that I've been out here doing my thing as best as I can.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think that you've been out of college and you've been working the grind for basically as long as the existence of fifth edition's been out, since it came out 2014, and now we're getting ready for these new rules. Stay tuned, listeners, because I think we'll have a pretty exciting parlays at the platter episode that will be forthcoming. I don't know when it'll drop in the future, but maybe you should subscribe to the Patreon so you can listen to it early. But not to take away from the interviews section, I think that's a great segue into the next question of, do you currently or have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons before? I don't think that was something we were necessarily doing together in college, because I think I was still in the fourth edition days. That would have been about 2010 is when I started with 4E, and still
Mm,
going through grad school with that before I moved out here to Dallas. And I
yeah.
always equate like my move to Dallas is when I officially made my switch over to fifth edition. And I've just kind of been in that system since. And that's what I feel the most comfortable with now at this point.
Yeah, well, it's funny about you mentioning going into fifth edition into Dallas. For myself, I had never played D&D before I moved to Orlando. So I was never into fourth edition, but I dipped my toes into it about 8 years ago now, and I've been playing on and off with a lot of friends. I've been on a bunch of live streams to stream different kinds of games. I've even more so recently have kind of gotten into some more different TTRPGs essentially as well. So I've kind of branched out and have found even more fun, creative ways to tell stories with friends. But definitely, you got to go back to D&D every once in a while, you know?
Yeah, so you started when you moved to Orlando, and so you
hmm
you started with 4E and then made to 5E, and then you've branched out, as you said, and played other TTRPGs. I know LeRoyal, when he was on, he was sharing about like, oh, I did a podcast for a little bit of a time.
hmm
Is that kind of like what you did as well? I don't know if that was prompted by COVID, and so you were like, oh, I got to do something creative, and let me jump into D&D, or like, what was that journey like?
So it was a little before that. I how I initially kind of got into D&D is worked with some friends in an escape room, and they were big into D&D, and I was like, I don't know anything about that. Could I come watch? And they were like, that's kind of weird, but of course you can. Because a lot of people are like, "No, you can't watch, you have to play," and I was like, "I don't know if I'm ready." Like, I just kinda wanna know what it's like and see how it is.
Mhm.
And immediately got super involved in the story, just and not involved, but, like, I was fascinated by it, and my friends were super good storytellers, so that gave me a little bit of, confidence to essentially go and start to play. Another friend group of mine, there's actually we started streaming on Twitch. And this was pre-COVID. So we were actually physically playing together in the room and filming that way. And that's how I started into a D&D intro game, essentially, to kind of get the feel for it. And I
Mhm.
picked it up super well. And then shortly after that, I started a campaign through Twitch, and I was live streaming that way for a good chunk of time. So, um, yeah, that's really kind of how it started for me. And we've played, pre-COVID all the way up until just recently. I've done another podcast, D&D channel called Jousting Through Jacinto, and we're on a short hiatus, and that should be
Mm.
coming back around. But yeah, so that's kind of that journey of how that started and where we're at now.
Awesome. And yeah, wonderful to hear. It's always
hmm
good to have another nerd to nerd out about things with. So going along with that, and the name of this show, Sidekicks and Side Quests, we like to focus on the other, the background actor, the little guy, the
hmm
one that just does a really good job of supporting the main character, but should be applauded in their own right. I mean, it's why they give out Academy Awards for Best Supporting actors and all that stuff, right? So, in your mind, in your Academy Awards in your head, who happens to be your favorite sidekick or NPC character, whether they're from an RPG, video game, movie, film, television, literature, etc.? And why is this character your favorite sidekick or NPC?
Yeah, I think my favorite sidekick is Ludo from the Labyrinth. I love the trope of just potentially this very large, could be terrifying creature and could just take you out so quickly, that end up
Mm.
having the biggest hearts ever. And I mean, who doesn't want to just go up and give Ludo the biggest hug? Like, honestly.
Right. Yes, the Henson puppet
hmm
mastery over there, and yeah, because Ludo's the big one that almost is
Yeah.
like reminiscent of like Snuffleupagus and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Stands on, two legs, has huge, like, meaty hands essentially, and little horns coming out of his head, and
Mhm.
he doesn't speak very well, and he's just simple minded, and I'm just like, you're so sweet. I just want to hug that guy.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's a good choice for sure. It's been a while since I've watched Labyrinth, but
Mhm.
yes, now it's all flooding back to me. And yes,
Yes.
yeah, he was a very good sidekick to Jennifer Connelly to help her get through the labyrinth to be able to rescue her baby
Yeah.
brother from David Bowie,
Mhm.
as he's wont to do with kidnapping children.
Yeah. Classic.
Classic. Um, And then also, like the name of the show, what happens to be your favorite side quest or B plot element? Again, same kind of criteria: RPG, video game, movie, film, television, literature, etc. And why is this? B plot or your side quest your favorite?
So my favorite would definitely have to be from Superbad, McLovin and the cops. Uh,
Oh
I
yeah.
love the absolute absurdity of those three together. And it's just like it encapsulates this very specific type of grown up who's not like still has that kind of Peter Pan syndrome and
Mm-hmm.
has, but also at the same time, they're living vicariously through this kid um, while they still don't want to, fully grow up essentially. So, and I also just love Bill Hader as
Mm.
well. So it's a little bit of marrying of those two things essentially. So just the absurdity of the characters and their obsession with this kid, which is messed up, but
Right.
um, just the shenanigans that they are able to to live vicariously through McLovin. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I was gonna say that was definitely like a college era movie that
Yeah.
came out for us. So like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, Bill Hader, Seth Rogen, and Christopher Mintz-Platz.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that trio. And look at where they all have gone on to now with the
Insane.
yeah. I mean, I've been catching up on The Boys, and Invincible, and I know Evan Goldberg and Seth
Mhm.
Rogen are often, producer team up guys that'll, they worked on Superbad together and that,
Right.
and now they're doing things like The Boys or Invincible or whatnot. So
Mhm.
excellent choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sitting here drinking a Shiner summer
Oh
lemonade
man.
shandy, and so it has me thinking Bill Hader's like, we need road beers, yeah.
Oh, man. That takes me that Shiner was the first beer I ever drank and in Texas or
Oh
at
yeah.
all, and I was like, "This is not for me."
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say you picked a good one because, like, my grandfather would say, if you're gonna drink a beer,
You
drink
drink the
something
Shiner.
worth drinking. Yeah, like Shiner.
Mm, I love it.
And then the way that we end the personal interview section of the show, what are you passionate about and why?
So I'm crazy passionate about creating experiences for others that they won't ever be able to forget. Growing up, I loved going to Disney World. Um, I one of the very first times I went to Disney World kind of actually led me to my path now. There was a troupe of performers that worked at Hollywood Studios called the Citizens of Hollywood, and we were about to leave the park and we were waiting for my mom and my sister, and my dad and I are just standing out on the sidewalk waiting for them to buy something from like a local merch shop in there. And these actors are talking and yelling at each other about like this policeman, I believe, ended up trying to figure out like who is guilty in this situation between this group and that group, and they're going back and forth, being super loud, and they pull my dad into the uh, into the scene with them, and is like, "Oh, well, Clark Kent here, my dad, is my witness. He was here with me the whole time," and will never forget that moment of this is insane. I don't remember anything else about my first trip to Disney World except for that moment. Um, because it stuck with me so hard. And then of course, whenever I grew up a little bit more, I realized, oh, you can do that. That's a real thing. Um, so so essentially like coming back to Orlando and finding things to do performing wise led me to this immersive theater project that I started with, which is really where I n- understood that meaning of changing somebody's just giving them this essential core memory that they will never be able to forget. Essentially, this immersive performance was almost like a first person video game that
Mhm.
you would be able to go through with a group of friends or yourself and influence the story with all of these actors through the environments, and really had that agency to change the story. And so creating stories and experiences like that give people this really cool just feeling of I have agency just watching a performance and interacting with other actors is something that is incredibly phenomenal for myself. And I love to even incorporate that if I'm not acting, if I'm helping as a production coordinator for a new show, how can I give that to somebody and make them feel like this is something that they won't ever forget, and they can smile and think back on this performance or this experience with, just happy memories, so that they can tell somebody else about it and get other people to get out in the world and go do a different experience that maybe they've never done before.
Listeners of this podcast know that this is purely an audio medium, so they don't get the visuals. But you and I are looking at each other on the camera, and so I see you're wearing a D20, a Dimension 20 shirt, and so it just had me thinking of this question as you're explaining, why you're passionate about creating these experiences through acting and
Mhm.
environmental storytelling and all this. And so I was just trying to think of like, oh, so even with that earliest memory, and through high school, through our college experiences and your working experiences, do you think that all kind of helped build and just like gave you this hobby, kind of served it up like on a silver platter as like, hey, this is what you love? Like, this is like, some of your favorite actual play shows like Dimension 20 or
Yeah.
Critical Role or some of these other ones that do have actors, in fact, in the cast. And they're like, showing you a way to play the game. Like,
Yeah.
feels like it was pretty seamless.
Yeah, well, what's funny is I mentioned earlier my first 101 D&D game. Uh that My DM, his name's Billy. He's amazing DM. I met him through that first immersive experience I was just speaking of. So we became friends via this immersive theater piece, and after that he kept coming to our shows. Our friendship grew essentially, and then he became my DM for multiple different shows and different campaigns essentially. So it's so natural how all of these things lined up and have pushed me to this point. And personally, it's phenomenal to look back and be like, oh, if I hadn't have even considered working or attempting to go and work for the theme parks, I might not even be sitting in this chair in Orlando right now. So
Right.
it's so cool that it just all connected exactly how it should have for myself.
And isn't Super Florida Con something or another supposed to be
Mega
happening soon? And then Critical
MegaCon
Roles gonna be
Medica
there?
MegaCon just passed. I think it was or end of last year. I can't remember. Time's a weird construct. But it'll be coming back around, I'm sure, and it's massive and huge. But I don't know about Critical Role if they're coming out here, but they
Yeah,
do.
I thought I saw a advertisement or something like that
Yeah,
they were like, "Hey, we're coming to some big convention in Florida." So I was gonna be like, "Oh, that'd be really cool
amazing.
if you could like go see them or something like
Yeah,
that."
definitely. MegaCon is very expensive,
Mm.
so it's a little pricey, even if you live here.
Mhm.
Um, so I haven't really tried to get out there. Also, the area that it's in is. I also used to work over there, so I'm like, I'm gonna try to avoid over that section because it's very touristy over there. There's lots of traffic issues, so
I see.
yeah. But I've been going to some smaller cons more so recently that
Oh, cool.
yeah, like nothing super D&D related just yet, but
Mhm.
because I've been going more, I feel like I might have to dip my toe into those waters too to see what else is out there. There's another one that's coming. I wish I could remember what it's called. It's supposed to be next month, but from Dimension 20, there is a Court of Fey and Flowers, which is actually my favorite Dimension 20 D&D
Mhm.
game. And Omar was a cast member on there, and he's going to be in this at this con that's coming up next month. That's actually much cheaper than MegaCon and a little bit smaller. So, so I'm definitely considering going to that one.
There you go. Yeah, I've only
Hmm.
been to Dallas Fan Expo twice
Yeah.
now. And then previous guests of the show, the Five Sided Fates, hosted their first con just this past end of March. So,
Wow.
slowly getting out there and all that stuff and working it out. I know, no big deal, but the guy who did the voice acting for Asterion was there, and so I saw him in person. He was at his table signing things, and so his line was very long because of
Of course.
everyone wanted to, get his autograph, and then of course
Mhm.
seeing different people in all the celebrity photograph lines. I'm staring up here on my bookcase, and I've got my photo with Charlie Cox and Vincent
Uh-huh.
D'Onofrio. And if I had just coughed up the extra dough, I could have added John Bernthal in it. But I was like, oh, I'll be fine. And then I went to his panel, and I was like, "Ah, yeah, I should have added John Bernthal as well. But oh well, c'est la vie. You learn and you live. So
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
well, as you can tell, Hillary and I are great friends. It's like memory lane, it's like nostalgia all wrapped in one. And we could sit here and gab for hours, but I
Truly.
would be doing us a disservice because I think it's time for us to head into some NPC creation. And NPC creation is brought to you by you, the podcast audience, and our patrons from Patreon. So now is the time in the show where we give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. So to you, our queen of the Patreon, Goblin Katie, aka Katie Downey, as well as our other wealthy tier patrons, including Anson Jablinski and good old mom and dad Crenwelgi. We say cheers. Again, you just donate $2 or more a month, you get a shout out on every episode that I have. And all of these people are at least wealthy tier level, which means they get to introduce an element of chance, which we might get to use here in this section of the show. You never know. But if you want to learn more about this awesome Patreon community, you should go to the show notes below, check out my podcast website, or just go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests to learn about all of our accommodations that we have awaiting for you. Help us to grow and expand our operations in this demiplane and worlds beyond. Okay, so as we were talking before we started rolling, you have a unique approach that you like to take whenever you are forming new characters. So, what is the method we're using today?
So like most ladies of of the internet, I essentially have a Pinterest board, and
Mm.
I will find uh different characters that people will put their art up on Pinterest, and I love to kind of go through and essentially take somebody's artwork and put it to a character. I do like to put a little bit of a spin on it, just so I'm not, absolutely copying the art. But I do enjoy to use artwork as my inspiration to kind of visualize what my character is, and then take that and kind of run with it.
Ah, yes. So it's like a theme and variations. I'm kind of
Mhm.
more musically minded, so it's like, okay, we got the original piece of music here. All right, how are we gonna do like our flavor spin on it, like when you do a cover song? So we're
Yeah.
gonna do Hillary's cover song to get today, based on a piece of Pinterest art. So
Yes.
what is the art that we're working with today?
It is this little he's just a little guy. He looks like a little black crow that can't be bigger than like 3 inches, that is wearing this little hood that's clasped at his neck. He's got the biggest eyes you have ever seen, that's almost the size of his head, essentially. And he is carrying this little sharp dagger with a big old smile on his face.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good visualization. So yeah, we'll just work our way through the questions, and I think it'll be pretty self-evident who we're going to make today. So,
Hmm.
um, and of course, I always leave it open. So if you ever get stuck or you're like, I need something to spice this up, we can always roll a dice and see if that gets the brain juices flowing
Love it.
for creativity. So the first question: what's the name of the character?
I think this little guy's name is Peep.
Peep.
Hmm.
Peep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Just like your favorite Easter candy. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or marshmallows, I guess I should say. Highly contentious, I suppose. I'm going to have a wildly divided audience. They'll get up in arms on social media. Who knows? But okay. So Peep,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then what is the ancestry? I mean, I have a pretty good idea of where it might
Mhm.
go, but you might have a different opinion. So what is the ancestry of this character?
I think we gotta go Kenku. I think we got to.
Are you of the opinion that it's purely mimicry and Peep has to learn everything from listening to people? Or would you imagine like a world of like, oh, they can talk like normal, but they just have a really uncanny ability with mimicry?
I think it's the latter of the two.
Mm.
Because I've played both ways essentially for Kinkus.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel like if you've lived in a world for so long, I think that you would essentially gather all of that information if you have that form of mimicry essentially. So you would understand and have lived, if you've lived your entire life essentially. So I'm on that end of the spectrum for Lil Peep.
Okay. And I would believe it. I have a 3-year-old son who, likes to play on his what he calls his big phone, which is the iPad that we've had now for 7 months. Try prying that away from him, and he has an epic meltdown. But yeah, just all the educational stuff, the programs and games that he gets to play, like he is very good with the mimicry, and he like
Mhm.
repeats and runs through scripts that he's picked up from different things.
Yeah.
I mean, he still is able to like form his own opinions, and when you ask him a question or say, "Hey, can you tell me what this color is?" and he can tell
Right.
you what it is and stuff like that. But yeah, I would believe that as far as like if you listen to enough stuff, it's like, oh, I have a pretty good idea of like how language is supposed to work. So,
Yeah, definitely.
all right, next question. What is the job or role in society for Peep the Kenku?
Uh, I think that Peep is a soldier or a guard.
Ooh, okay.
So I think he's like the front guard that you would see in front of like at a kingdom or even like a castle or something to that effect. He's what you encounter before you can go in. Which I think is very funny because he's just this little dude and you're like, this guy's not gonna do nothing.
Okay. So that's his greatest weapon is his deceptive
Yes.
appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So he's a guard, a noble guard for a kingdom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see. How old is Peep?
Um, I would say that Peep would probably be around 20 years ish. I don't know how I don't know the lifespan of Kinkus, but
Mhm.
essentially like in that not high school years, but just a little bit out of it. So
Ah.
uh yeah, so this is first big boy job for Peep.
Mm. Okay, he's out of the nest and he's ready to prove mom and dad right, that
Yeah.
whole thing. Okay.
Mhm.
And I know when we were introducing this concept, you've already kind of done a little bit of a physical description of the character, but now that
Mhm.
we've kind of gotten some more names to these specific questions, is there anything you would change or amend as far as the physical appearance of Peep would be concerned?
I would as he looks in the photo that I've essentially used, he looks like he's kind of in his town garb. So I would say that he would probably be yielding a shield with him, and maybe some little armor, and maybe a little like essentially an armored hat too that comes down
Mm.
like almost to his beak, essentially, but so he can still talk. It doesn't hit it quite there. So just to give him some, a little bit more oomph, but also makes it look a little silly because that's wild seeing a little bird wearing a bunch of armor like that.
Sure. Well, I mean, speaking as a Catholic, I mean, I get it all the time, or I hear it all the time when people go to Rome and they go to the Vatican, and then they're like, "Who are all these dudes in brightly colored uniforms and stuff like that?" It's like, "Oh, that's just the Swiss Guard." So I was getting like Swiss Guard vibes for Peep. Like he's
Yeah.
just like, you were saying like, "Oh, he's in his town garb," but like, is his royal armor and outfit that he's supposed to wear kind of reminiscent of like the Swiss Guard? So it's like
Yeah.
mimics in a way the bright
Mhm.
plumage of feathers of like tropical birds or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But he's
Yeah.
like on guard at the
Mhm.
gates, and people are like, what's this guy all about? But if he has to take you out, like he goes right for the shins, kind of a thing.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that armor is like super shiny and like it looks like it's never been touched before. So it almost looks like it's, just decorative a little bit
Mhm.
too. So uh it gives a little bit more sense of a lull of safety of this guy's not gonna do anything. He's never seen
Mhm.
any action.
Yeah, and so it sounds like probably a pretty strict training regimen, even for Peep here.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. And let's see. Okay, we got a pretty good physical description. If you had to describe Peep with three adjectives, what three adjectives would you use?
One would be ferocious. Uh um Loyal and good judge of character. That's not an adjective, but uh
Discerning?
yeah, there we go.
Okay, so he is ferocious, he's loyal, and he's discerning. I suppose you have to be as a guard,
Mhm.
with all these people walking by, and you just have to like have your crow eyes, open
Mhm.
and scanning the crowds and figuring out like who's a threat and who's not.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, now my question again, going back to like, my frame of reference being like, oh, the Swiss Guard and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Is this like a situation of like, is he the only Kenku guard of this place? Is it a situation of like, oh, this is a kingdom of bird folk and he's part of
Oh,
the illustrious bird folk guard? Or is this like, oh, the noble Kenku nation saved the holy religious figure, and so there's been this unbroken agreement that like these noble Kenku warriors are supposed to guard this this dwarven cleric for all time, as he is the voice piece of one of the dwarven gods on the mortal planes.
right. I think I love the idea of Peeps out here and he's just like, I'm gonna get a job at that place and there's no bird folk anywhere around essentially, and he goes in to go and get this, to prove his parents that make them proud of him essentially, and he goes in and they're like, this guy, okay, let's run him through the gambit, and give him that initiation, and he does it with flying colors and they're like, you're in, you got it, Peep.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Okay, so very cool. So just like I'm going for this job, I'm gunning for it. The ferocity comes
Mhm.
out, and he blows them all away. Okay, very cool. Um,
Mhm.
excellent. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to love Pete more and more. Okay. Well, we like all of our NPCs to have something cool on their person. So,
Mhm.
what is going to be a valuable item, a piece of lore, a secret, or an ideal or concept that Peep would ascribe to? So, this is a part, obviously, if you're spitballing it, you might throw one or two. But if you're like, I just need something, then you can always go to the dice rolls and we can figure out one of those things.
I think Peep's valuable item is a piece of gold because crows like shiny things.
Hmm.
And I think it's like, oh, here's a lucky gold piece that I found. And then he got this job. So he keeps it close to his heart now.
Ah, okay. Well, I like that. Yeah, he just has
Mhm.
like a very sentimental, singular piece of gold that he just holds on to, and that's his most
Mhm.
precious thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and he's not that way. Maybe necessarily with anything else. It's just like, no, this is like the one gold piece I found, and then I got the job, and like this is the
It was,
precious thing to me.
yeah, it was destiny. If I hadn't found the gold piece, I wouldn't have done the thing, essentially. So,
Very cool.
yeah.
Okay, I love that. And then, okay, and now let's see what is going to be a particular quest that Peep the guard would need player characters to go and do on his behalf. If you're inspired, what is that going to be? Or I always push these tables just because they're here. They're resources. They're here
Yeah.
for a guest to use. So if you're stuck and you're like, I have no idea what people would need help with, you can always
Yeah.
roll a d12 and figure that out.
Yeah, let's do that. Use
Or you can
the
mix and match. Sometimes it's a launching off
Mhm.
point too. So
Yeah, definitely. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. I got 4.
4. Okay. This
Mhm.
one's come up a couple of times, so I don't know. You tell me if you think this is appropriate, but our mutual friend and our previous guest, Nolan Page, had a response. Deliver a breeding pair of a rare species of animal to a reserve to help them repopulate their numbers. Is that I don't know if that sounds like a Peep sort of thing.
It's not.
Okay. I mean, you're
Oh
free to
no.
re-roll, but
Yeah, let's re-roll real quick because that feels odd
yeah,
for our boy. A 10.
a 10.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. I think this one might fit. So this is
Okay.
from when I did my live show. One of my audience members, Temp, suggested this answer: Find Grandpa. He wandered into the forest.
I love it. Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So Peep's grandfather has gone missing. He's wandered into the forest. Is there? I don't, now we get to do some more character building. We get to do
Yeah.
a small bit of genealogy, but what's the deal with Peep's grandfather? Like, what's his deal? Why is he wandering around in strange forests?
I feel like he is searching for something. Let's say that Peep's grandfather has a fascination with magic and wants to essentially know how it works a little bit more. So maybe he has gone to a market once before and went to a cart that had a mysterious traveler who had a bunch of magical items essentially. And he saw a like a magical orb that was like an arcane focus essentially,
Mm.
and it it was something that he thought was really cool, and maybe he purchased it and somehow it got lost mysteriously one day, and he went out into the woods to try and find it, and he keeps going back out to try and find this arcane focus.
Okay. And so by this point, he's just maybe wandered one too many times, and now it's like it's been a really long time, and we haven't
Mhm.
found Grandpa. Like normally
Yeah,
he'd come back by now, but he
yeah.
hasn't.
I feel like every day that he goes out, it's like he goes out for an hour one day. The next day he goes out for 2 hours, and it just doubles every single time he goes out.
Mm. So are we in the point now where it's like days,
Mhm. Yeah.
weeks? Well, hopefully
Mm.
not weeks, but
No, I feel like this is probably it might be getting close to weeks. I think we're like at
mm,
4-day period where it's like, "Oh, okay, that's too much time."
yeah, he's pondering the orb too much. He
Mhm.
ponders
Yep.
that orb too much. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Grandpa's wandered into the forest because he's in search of this arcane focus. So I don't know. I mean, obviously we leave things open ended for
Yeah.
whoever's going to use Peep.
Mhm.
But sometimes if there are, if there are benchmarks that you want to leave, is this tied back to the peddler as it was? Like the peddler
Right.
sold like some sort of faulty item, and so it's luring people into the
Mhm.
forest as it was.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this
It
all
was
links back.
yeah, so it was all more of a trick from the peddler itself rather than it was a pretty shiny thing that, grandpa bought, and uh it was a ploy essentially to get grandpa to follow to potentially go somewhere.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like that's a very fey trickster sort of thing to
Yeah.
do. Probably some sort of a fey creature in disguise, like, hey, let me sell you these baubles. And like
Mhm.
every time you try and use it, it just gets a little bit further away until it's going to lead you to a portal to the Feywild or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So now this is a pretty good segue into the ramifications. So, the players hear Peep's ply for
Mhm.
rescuing his grandfather who's wandering about. I'm convinced he's not senile. He keeps disappearing, and I don't know why he's going into the forest. But go find my grandpa. The player
Mhm.
characters are successful. They find grandpa. They thwart whatever plot's going on. What is the reward? How is Peep going to reward the player characters for their job well done?
I think that I think that Peep would uh have essentially his own box of shinies. that
Mm-hmm.
would be essentially gold that he has captured around in the town, essentially. So he's picked up a bunch of different like gold pieces and stuff like that. One is very specifically special to him, but I think that I think gold pieces are one of those things that probably are almost like pennies at some point. Like if you don't really see it, and Peep's like, "Ooh, gold," and he's just collected like a decent sum of gold pieces for the player characters.
Okay, so there's just there's a small gold piece reward for rescuing Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfectly fine and justifiable reward. Certainly seems in character with Peep.
Right.
Unless you're of the kind of the goofy video gamey sort of like bloop, bloop, like a magic item just kind of falls on the ground and is like, here you go, here's a reward for the quest, and you're like, oh, you were holding on to this thing? Why were you holding on to this magic arcane 6-shooter revolver or whatever it is?
Yeah, I don't think I feel like with the guard, I don't feel like he would be able to hold anything by his person in that sense, essentially. Uh, I think maybe the only other thing that he could have might be like a component that potentially could be good for spells. So maybe one of the shinies is a diamond that he happened to add into you know the pouch of gold as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so any little things like that that might
A
not actually.
pearl or
Yeah, exactly.
okay. All right. So yeah, okay. So gold and maybe a couple of spell components or something like that have
Mhm.
ended their way. So a dungeon master can figure out the composition of his adventurers group and be like, "Oh yeah, the wizard's been wanting a pearl for a while. Okay, so the this
Mhm.
guy can give him a pearl, convincingly and stuff
Right.
like that."
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
All right, but now the opposite. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure? So Peep's like, "Hey, my grandpa keeps going missing. You should go find him." They, tell him buzz off, bird brain, or they do it, but they're too late. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusal?
Hmm. This one's a little bit trickier than I was planning. Let's see.
I mean, he's a ferocious guy. Is he going to take it
He
personally, like Inigo Montoya? I swear I have not drank that much beer. I'll eventually say the guy's name right. Inigo
Uh-huh.
Montoya. Is he going
Uh-huh.
to go ferocious on them for like you let my grandpa die, now I have to kill you all kind of a thing, or is that like way too extreme out of his character?
I kind of like the thought of uh Peep seems way too chill about them not them not completing the thing or saying no, we're not going to do this, and he's like okay, and then he in the middle of the night will gather his friends and other guards and ambush the party.
Oh, okay, and they're the legitimate guards of this town, this place that you're
Mhm.
in, and so then that gets into further interesting political ramifications because it's like, oh, is this like a commentary on police brutality?
Mhm.
Is this like or like, oh, oh, we're the guards of this town and we're the ones who make the show, and
Mhm.
is it a commentary on the police state, or is it just like, Peep has really like proved his worth with all the guards and they're like, hey, we
Mhm.
got your back, and like these guys wronged you and like they let grandpa die or whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think he's more on the I am loyal to all of you, so you should be loyal to me, essentially.
Ah.
And they've built that kind of relationship together. So um, it's kind of good old boys territory.
Mm, okay. And certainly, if the players don't want to potentially, brand themselves as outlaws because like they
Mhm.
just be like, "Oh, we were attacked by all these guards and they murdered them, in self-defense," but the town might not see it that way of like, "Oh, these guys murdered all these beloved guards of the town." And yeah, now the player characters are outlaws. They have a bad reputation because it's like, "Oh, they go around murdering guards. They're murder hobos or whatever." That's how they start their murder hobo careers.
Honestly, that's all it takes. It's just once.
is there a difference if the player characters now surrender? Like, obviously, okay, all these guards come out in force, they decide not to take the violent path, and then they get arrested. Is it just kind of like oh, you serve your time, sort of like a they write up some charge, and then the player characters have to endure the however long in jail? Or is it going to be like a trial? Like, how deep is Peep willing to go over this slight, if you will, or this wrong that's been done to him? And is someone going to check him? Like, Peep, you're letting this, like, you're getting like the magistrates of the imperial court involved. Like, I feel like this is not a good use of our resources, kind of a thing.
I think that even if they surrender, I think that because it's somebody close to him, they're gonna unleash essentially, because this is like a slight to him and his family. And I think that he would just charge no matter what,
Mm.
essentially. Because if they're gone, no harm, no foul. If they're killed, they still have to
Mhm.
face the ramifications for it. So it's a win-win on Peep's part.
Ah. And the other guards aren't going to look at him differently if, like, say, for instance, the other guards, they're there for support, moral support, but then, Peep goes to like 1v1 the entire party, and the guards are just standing back like, yeah, that guy's carrying a giant flaming great axe. I don't want to die. Like, Peep, you should probably like let this go, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think that he's I don't know if he would. So I mean, the guards could potentially be with him. And maybe that there are some some ties there with Peep has helped his guard friends make sure that they are taken care of, and somebody has slighted them and he has helped them. I feel like
Mm.
he's put in some good tokens with a good majority of his group that he's doing, but
Hmm.
possibly one might peace out and go and create a fuss about it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of now. I'm just intrigued by the politics of this town and this guard force. That's like, is this little Kenku supposedly is the entire mastermind behind the
Mhm.
more quote unquote insidious good old boy culture of this town with their guards?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
who would
I,
have
I,
thought?
yeah. I mean, we're doing it live.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so I'm just, again, I just always, as a DM, fellow DM, I always like to just try and consider every angle. I mean, is there any chance in
Hmm.
failure or refusal where it doesn't end in bloodshed? Like, is there some, like, maybe a super charismatic group figures out a non-violent solution, or, like, hey, we really tried, but like by the time we got there, your grandfather was dead. There was like nothing we could do. We didn't have anything to, resurrect him or anything like that. He was torn birdie limb from limb and stuff like that. Like they give like
Yeah.
an honest report of like what really
Yeah.
happened and stuff.
Um, it would be, I think what would sway Peep's mind is bribery.
Mm. Oh,
Some,
bribery.
yeah, absolutely. I think Peep can absolutely be bought with shinies.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now we're just getting more into that the good old boy culture of
Hmm.
like, oh, you pay me enough gold and I'll look the other way. Me and my friends will leave you alone tonight. Okay.
Hmm.
What are the goals and motivations of Peep as a character?
I think that he is trying to raise in the ranks for this military or guard essentially. Um, and so that's one reason that he's making relationships with others who are in that in within the ranks itself. And he'd like to you know raise himself as high as he can go.
He's gunning for that captain of the guard position.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm, okay. And then how do these goals and motivations affect his general personality?
I think that this has I think that Pete, before he became a soldier and a guard, has hardened him a little bit. I think that Pete was a little bit more, had a little bit more of a spark in him, like a little bit more of a bright light, essentially. And I think him trying to gun for these golds has kind of taken that shine away from him, and so he's become a little bit more hardened and cold. So that's why
Mm.
now it's like, oh, if you don't find my grandfather, shink, you know, that kind of vibe.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh man, yeah. What you were saying, I heard a poetry in it of like, oh, he used to have more of a golden shine in him, but then
Mhm.
he found the gold piece that secured his position in the guard, and now he's just chasing after more gold, more power, more
Yeah,
prestige to climb the ranks. It's kind of like it's like it's cool, but it's also sad at the same time. Like this
truly.
poor little burb that's just trying to make an honest living, but is his honesty still intact with this living?
Hmm.
Yeah,
The
the
world may
things that
never know.
actors think of.
Ah, ha, ha.
So, how does he normally interact with different groups of people? Like friends and family versus his fellow guards versus townspeople and the government of the town and enemies and rivals and such. Is he pretty nuanced when it comes to like different groups of people, or is he pretty same one note across the board?
I think for the majority of people, he would be pretty, you know, straight ahead, soldier esque. But I think that he would probably soften around like family members, because I feel like that him and his family was who he had
Hmm.
in the past. Um, so friends might not have come around as easily for him,
Hmm.
just depending on where he lived. But I think he would soften up to his family for sure a little bit differently than uh, he would with like townsfolk. And but I would say that like around the soldiers and stuff like that, I think he kind of is able to take a load off and is can joke around with his buddies and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, but within reason. If it's duty, off duty, we're all chill, everything's cool. Like he's not really thinking of those goals
Hmm.
fully at that time.
And then let's see, does Peep have a particular accent or language that he uses? Are there any idiosyncrasies in how he acts or speaks?
I don't think that he has a particular accent. Um, I think the one thing that how he would speak that would set him apart is sometimes whenever he finishes sentences, they go up when they're not supposed to.
Hmm.
Because it kind of goes back with that mimicry of like he's put all the words together, but sometimes it's like Siri. Like sometimes she'll say a thing and it doesn't sound quite right.
Hmm.
Like or the inflection is kind of funny. So I think that those are the little nuggets that Peep has issues with. So
What impact has Peep made on the world? How has he shaped his local area?
I think he's in the process of doing that. Like I don't think he's made it quite there yet. Like I feel like he's probably newer to the ranks essentially.
Hmm.
So he's trying to prove himself, but I think that he's surprised at a lot of the locals in that time. Um cuz again, it's a small little burb. What is this guy doing in here? Laugh, laugh, laugh. Oh, that burb just shanked that guy. Okay, it's that kind of vibe. Like, oh, don't mess with the teeny burb. Don't do it.
Hmm.
you know.
And then finally, does Peep have any current problems that prevent him from being a bigger player on the stage?
Yeah, I think he wants to be taken seriously, and maybe he's still trying to earn his place. Um, within the town and within the ranks itself. Like, uh, the initiation was a good way to do that, but I still feel like there are probably some soldiers who are still like, this kid doesn't know anything, that kind of vibe. So,
Mm.
um, so that's holding him back. So he's trying to, you know, uh, build up to, no, you will take me seriously. I am meant to do this, and I will get what I'm looking for.
I was gonna say, did you watch Andor?
Oh, no, I haven't gotten to
Okay.
watch it
I
yet.
was gonna say this sounds very much like one of the side characters in
really?
Andor on the Imperial secure. Like he's just like a sergeant for like the security company or whatever like that. But
Mhm.
he's very much like this intense. He wants to do things militarily, and he wants to be
Mhm.
taken care of. Wants to be taken seriously, and so
Yeah.
this character that we're actually following is like this, he's trying to be like climbing the ranks, but he's kind of got like, he's like a wet noodle. He has like no spine or like no real confidence, but this other guy's coming in to like try and boost him up to be like, this is our operation and we're going to find this Cassian
Mhm.
Andor and we're going to take him out, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So that's very much kind of like the vibe I get from Pete.
That's
It's like,
so funny.
he's like, all the old timers are like, okay, Peep, you're lucky you got the job. Like you can search under the carts really well. And I'm too old to bend down and look and all that stuff. And he's just like really eager. Like, no, we're going to defend this town. The bandit attacks are down 37% because of my joining the force, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I feel like he's like doing math on his abacus. He's like, no, see? The red pebbles are over here now.
Yes, less bandits in the town. Yeah, that whole
Yes.
sort of thing. Okay. Well, very cool. So we've made it through NPC creation. We've got a good little burb dude. And now it's time to throw him into a random encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by my sponsor, Zencastr. Zencastr came into my life when I didn't think I would need it, but now I definitely need it with trying to raise a family and keep the podcast episodes flowing and all that stuff, and not trying to keep myself awake for all hours of the night trying to get these episodes edited. Thanks to Dane and Benjamin over at Dispel Magic showing me this service, I was hooked. And I decided to become a paying member so I could get access to all these awesome tools with editing and getting these great episodes to you. So it is so easy and super easy now to record a podcast with Zencastr. You log into your browser and you start recording a high quality podcast right away. You could record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen, knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. A hard sell. On that point alone, I've been podcasting for a couple of years now. That is amazing. So that is a great selling point of this service. You can sound your best. Have you ever worried what you might sound like on a podcast? With Zencastr's post-production process, it makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes the ums and ahs as you click on that feature in the post-production settings, and in your recordings, it's going to remove those awkward pauses and conversations too with the click of a button. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. It really is that easy. It's all in one. If you have thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are done. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and all other major podcast destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SIDEKQPodcast, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Again, the website, zencastr.com/pricing. Use the code SIDEKQPodcast and get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. Thank you so much to the sponsor, and back to the podcast. All right, and so then this section is the random encounter. This is where we get to play a little bit of D&D. We get to have a scene, a vignette, if you will. Our old college acting powers combine, and we'll come up with some sort of scene to present Peep in. So the question to you is, and I think you're going to do a great job of showcasing Peep, but the question becomes, who am I supposed to be in the scene? Am I going to be like an older guard teamed up with Peep at the gates and just like we're having a conversation back and forth? Is it going to be Peep meeting one of my adventurer characters from the podcast and trying to give them the side quest to go find Grandpa? Is it, I don't know, it could be anything like Peep with his grandpa, or, any number of scenes. What interests you? How do you want to bring Peep to life today?
Let's have him meet with eh, let's do after he's gone through the initiation.
Okay.
He is presented to like the kingdom essentially. So not like the kingdom itself, but like uh the lord or king in this town to initiate him into the guard itself.
Okay, I keep going back to it because again, it's the one point of reference I have, and I feel like we actually just passed the anniversary of it. But yeah, with there's like an official initiation ceremony for all the brand new Swiss guards that join the Swiss guards to be able to have the honor and prestige to guard the Pope and stuff like that in Vatican. Okay, so you want to do a scene where like it's graduation day or it's like it's
Yeah.
presentation to the king and he's like going up and down the line and like meeting the newest batch of guards that are now going to guard the royal city, kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, I also think that this is like one of the rewards that you get once you pass the initiation is you get to meet the king, and he's the one who like will you know knight you essentially.
Okay, yeah, or like maybe
Hmm.
not like a full knighting, but like
Right,
you get the
but
tap of the sword and it's like you get the seal of approval, kind of a thing.
hmm
Okay, and
yeah.
so I'm going to be this. You think like a kingly figure or a duke
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
other some sort of landed gentry.
definitely.
Okay, I'm just wondering is this like the royal city or is this going to be like, oh, this is like this is like San Angelo. So it's like, oh, the judge or like whoever it is actually like giving you their seal of approval. One day you might get
Mhm.
lucky to go to the royal city and stuff like that, but like, you're just
Yeah,
like the guy in the small town kind of starting
yeah,
out.
definitely more smaller town vibes. And it's not like a big to do with everybody in town. It's more smaller scale, essentially. Of here we all are. We're meeting in this room. Tell me how he did, kind of vibes, or you tell me, Peep, what you did. That kind of ceremony ish, where it's
Okay.
just like where it's like this guy. Yeah, you're right. He killed it.
All right, so this is a kind of like on the fringes of the royal kingdom. So this is like one of the the fort towns, I would say. Like so on the wilderness edge, they have problems with marauders every once in a while. And so, this is also the fringe of the kingdom where maybe some more of the interesting folk live. So that's where maybe we find Peep's family, living in this town, and they have grown up here and they know all these people. And so, Peep has had his entire life to look up to these guards and think of and see them and hear their conversations of like, oh yeah, if I do really well here at the fort, they're going to call me up to the royal city, and then that's where I'll be doing the real stuff, and I won't be slumming it here in the mud and the muck and watching the parapets for any sort of incoming raiders or something like that. So yeah, it gets to be like flash forward, however many years as Peep grows up and spends his life here. And yeah, it's swearing in day, and Peep is here probably. I would say because it's a fort town. There's got to be like a good number of guards, but not like a huge like squad battalion. So we'll say maybe this year it's like another 12 come in.
Mhm.
And so obviously, you have mostly humans, maybe like some half elves, a dwarf or two, and like one really tall guy. So like maybe you have like a Fearbolg randomly in there. And then you go down the line and then it's just like really short to the ground. Just this little Kenku. And we'll say the captain of the guard is kind of overseeing this, along with the commander of the fort of the king's men that guard this
Mhm.
territory, and going up and down the line saying, ah, yes, my liege, yes, these are the finest crop that have come up for training to join us in guarding our fair town. Of course, my liege, you are in command of all of us, but I have the distinct pleasure of being kind of your go-to man here in town to help oversee the smaller scale stuff and not necessarily the big stuff like you and the troops do for guarding the borders. And he's kind of going up and down the line and shaking hands, and and the commander as well is shaking hands and just kind of like, ah, very, very, ah, yes, you did really good in the archery, yes, top marks. And then it was like going down the line. And then finally they get to Peep. And so all through this time leading up to Peep, what has Peep been thinking about? What's been going through his mind? What's he been thinking about that he's wanted to say or brag about before they come up to him in line?
I think that Peep has, I think his initiation, because I think that the other soldiers thought it would be really funny to put him up against like a giant or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a very David and Goliath kind of moment, essentially. And so I think he's just replaying that, his like final blow to this giant, like, you know, with his Achilles, got him with the dagger, that kind of vibes. So he's just playing that on repeat of that moment where he looked around and saw all the guards' faces just drop, like, oh, shoot. Like, and he's like, you belong here. You belong here. You belong here. You belong here.
And yeah, and it's actually the Fearbulg that's like standing right next to him, and he seems to have like a bit of a wrap still kind of around coming up from the boot of his grievous leg injury that he's been he's been working with the healers and the medics to get addressed, and so he's kind of limping a little bit. And they're finishing up with shaking his hand, and he has a very deep and gruff sort of voice. And then this captain of the guard and the commander come down, and they're like, and then this fellow is this is Peep. He's from our Kenku enclave that we have here in the fort. Yeah. And the commander's like, oh, very good, very good. And what was it that you did to earn your prestigious spot here in the guard?
Peep's gonna go look up at them and then just look over to the Fearbulg's ankle and just point at it and give just a big old smile. I did that. I did that.
Ah, yes. It's yes, the commander's like, the tactical advantage is he is so low to the ground. He can just and then the captain goes, I know, it's we haven't we had some halflings apply, but they were just a little bit too portly. They just could not keep up with Peep. He just kind of ran circles around them on the obstacle course and just just well done, Peep.
I'm fast. I'm very fast, and I fight good.
Indeed.
I'll fight good for you. I promise. I swear, on my honor.
The captain of the guard and then the commander both look at each other and they smile. They're kind of like tickled pink a little bit, seeing your enthusiasm. But then they're like, and the captain, gives you like a reassuring, like, good job sort of a thing as they're finishing shaking your hands. And the commander will say, like, and we will watch your career with great promise. And then there's probably like one or two more people after you. But they finish shaking hands. There's no caps to throw or anything like that. But the captain of the guard's just like, right, well, he turns over to his quartermaster and is like, so the quartermaster's going down the line and is handing everyone their like standard issued kit, their gear. And so then they're doing it one by one. There's kind of a funny scene where, because they had to get your requisition right for your size. They start handing it to the Fearbulg with a really small, and he looks at it like he's not going to get the backpack to fit right. And the sword's like, for him, it's literally like a dagger for him. And he's like, and they're like, oh, sorry. And they do the thing where they switch it out, and then he gets like the more short sword for his size kind of a thing, which would surely be, quite wieldy for you to be able, you would still be able to do it, but it might be a task. But then they come down to you, they hand you your pack, they hand you your uniform and your armor and your dagger. And the quartermaster gives you a pat on the shoulder. And is there anything that's now going through your mind, or any, now it's starting to kind of loosen up a little bit as the guards are like celebrating and they're talking and cheering and stuff like that. The commanders, obviously peeled off to go do something important. But now it's just kind of like a small moment with you and the guards. And so, is there like anything that, Peep is going to do or say?
I think he would turn to the Fearbulg and point at his leg and go, sorry about that. Is he doing good today?
Oh, yeah, it's doing fine. The healer said just, maybe another day or two and the bandage could come off.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it's healing really good. It was pretty great that you were holding my dagger. I didn't really think about the size of things, but you look really cool holding it, but probably cooler holding the bigger one.
Oh yeah, just the weight and the heft of this thing is just it's kind of good in my, I got a really long arm reach
Oh,
and all
yeah.
that and he maybe does a bit of a scratching his side. He's like, "I thought did they say we were going to have refreshments after this like a cheese platter or something?"
Ooh, I don't know. I would kill for some little breadcrumbs, though.
And then the captain of the guard's like, all right, out in the courtyard, you lots, get in your uniforms. There's some the ladies have procured something, have a little lunch and a snack, and then get to work." And then
I think Peep just takes off faster than everybody else. He's like, "Ah, I'm gonna change. I'm ready."
and scene. I think that's a pretty good way to end it. So, what was it like getting to be Peep?
He's a little nugget, isn't he?
He is, yeah, very enthusiastic guard. Yeah, wants to
Mhm.
climb those ranks as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I felt like going through more of that, like kind of shiny eyed, oh, everything is perfect, and it's not being so hard just yet. So the whoever uses him can, tough him up a little bit. But to see where he came from is a lot of fun.
Especially the idea of some of these video game franchises and the like do really well, and even some of our favorite actual plays do really well with like, oh, let me introduce this npc. You take them as a joke now, but given time
Mm.
and experience you see them like become more and more impressive as time goes on. So here he is, maybe he's just like the over enthusiastic guard that's like a bit of a brown noser or whatever in
Mhm.
this podunk town. But sure enough, he climbs the ranks and now like your party is gaining more and more prestige. Okay, now you're not on the outskirts. Now you're entertaining court and stuff like that. And who has been following you this entire time but Peep? And he has his eye on you because he knows what kind of character you are.
Yeah, definitely. I love it.
Yeah, and yeah, so we are now here in the final thoughts section of the show. So this is the point, we do a vibe check. We just, see how your time was on the podcast and get all your thoughts on Peep and the whole process and all that good stuff.
Yeah, this was really fun. I love character creation, honestly, because it stretches something that always was one of my favorite things in doing theater or doing shows is building that backstory with the character. I think it means everything, no matter if it's an NPC or a PC or if it's for a role that you're doing or anything like that. It's so important to just think through everything that your character is and how they think. So it's always good to kind of stretch that muscle for sure. And then of course the podcast. This was great. I loved this so much. Um, really good to talk to you and kind of hear how this podcast has changed and grown. And it's really great to reconnect with you too.
Yeah, and I know I am such a dunderhead because it only took me now to realize what I should have said way back when we were like, "Hey, remember, do you play D&D? You got to be one of my major faction NPC
Yeah.
leader character guys." So there's been a couple of revelations, because I have had players from that campaign as they've been listening to the podcast, and I get to be like, this person controlled someone, and they're like, "What? You mean? Wow! I was playing D&D with them." So yeah, no, that's really cool that we've had that experience of like, okay, asynchronous sort of like just trading notes back and forth. Now you and I
Yeah.
are getting to be here making up a whole character on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it so much. I'm really, really happy that you invited me.
Yeah. And I would be remiss here as we're in the final moments, if I didn't allow you the stage, the microphone, the soapbox, the platform to plug your socials. Where can we find you if you want to be found? What projects and things do you got going on that we need to know about? And then are there any passions or causes that we should be made aware of?
Yeah, so my friends and I, we are actually creating a Twitch channel that's called Inspired Distractions. We will be premiering this month, and we will be premiering Hunter the Reckoning as our first game on the channel. You will also find a more of a classic D&D, a Pathfinder campaign, and I will eventually be taking the DM spot and running a D&D inspired game with Good Society to take you down the Regency route of a more RP based game where there's drama and romance and duels. So very excited about that. And whenever this goes up, it will be live, so you guys can come and join us. And so the Instagram for that, as well as the Twitch, is just Inspired Distractions. That's 2Ds in the middle.
Excellent. And then do you want people to find you personally on social media to follow along as well, just in case, maybe they have ADHD and they're like, oh, I didn't get the name of that real quick. And Kurt hasn't done a good job with his show notes. So I don't know, where can I go? Where can I find that dedicated source and link?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Legend Hillary. Really easy, as well as you can also find me on TikTok. I'm not as active there, but I do watch and like to follow great D&D content over there, and that is also at Legend Hillary.
Excellent. So, Hillary, it was awesome to catch up with you and have you on the podcast. I can't wait to have you back on, making even more interesting and awesome NPCs.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Overcast, or YouTube, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app or player of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram/Threads, Twitter/X, and Reddit by searching for Side KQ Podcast. You can also find our small Discord community as well online. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. And hey, if you'd like to hail the bard and send me a message, an email, you can do so by communicating with sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars, please, to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. As mentioned in the NPC creations section of the podcast, I do in fact have a Patreon for Sidekicks and Sidequests. If you love this podcast and what we're trying to do here, I would appreciate it if you would just go to the website, patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic accommodations await, and we welcome all patrons to the Levitating Platter. Seriously, your financial support allows for this passion project to continue to invest in itself through the tools that will take our production to the next level, as well as provide more content for our patrons and the community at large. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can.
Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy.
Meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards.
Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast.
Copyright Wizards of the Coast,
LLC.
Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sidekicks and Sidequests.